Hi folks, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Mooney, and today we're going to talk a little DIY. So if you watched my last video, you know we talked about doing single flavor checks. Single flavor testing and all of that. And I briefly, sort of, touched on taking notes. One of the reasons why we take notes is so that we can tailor a recipe to our own tastes. So let's take a couple of ingredients here. Let's take Capella's Bavarian Cream, Jungle Flavor's Bavarian Cream, and TFA's Bavarian Cream. If you just look at the label, they're all the same, right? But they're not. So let's start with Capella's. These are three pretty popular ones. The Jungle Flavors is growing quickly. It's fairly new, so it's not nearly as popular as the other two, but it's getting there. But let's start with Capella's, because Capella's is pretty popular. For me, Capella's is very thin. It has a really sharp, peppery vanilla note to it. It doesn't really have any warmth to it. It doesn't really have a lot of mouthfeel. It's very thin and very light. Probably the best thing that I can compare it to, it would be like store brand generic knockoff Cool Whip. It's very light and very airy. It's not really it's a dense cream, but it's not really thick like a Bavarian cream should be. But don't let that fool you. It has its uses. Personally, I like it with a cinnamon roll or a heavy cake flavor, like a yellow cake, like the dense yellow cake flavors. Works really good to boost an icing flavor for those, or like a cream cheese or something that would go on top of it. Something that spicy vanilla note plays well with. It does well to boost up an ice cream if you want to have that sharper note to it. So it does have its uses. It's just not a true Bavarian cream to me. And then TFA's is probably the most popular. I don't know if you can see that on the camera or not. We'll figure it out later. But TFA's is probably the most popular. It's really dense and really thick. It really steeps out into a really nice mouthfeel. The vanilla notes are there. They're prominent, but they're not overly spicy. It has a warmth to it. It's really good to use in just about anything. If you're making a milkshake flavor or an ice cream flavor, it really knocks the ice cream up without losing anything to it. It's not overpowering. It holds up well with other spices, cinnamons, or things like that. It's still subtle enough that it doesn't drown out fruits. So it works really good in that respect. And then Jungle Flavors. So Jungle Flavors is kind of the new kid on the block, but it is really good. It's actually my preference. And if you pick it up, most recipes you can, well, okay. Again, this is a personal opinion on the subject, but for me, I can swap it one for one in a recipe that calls for TFA if I want to take the notes, if I want to, the flavor notes in this it steeps out to be just as thick, have just as good a mouthfeel. It has a slight egginess to it, like a custard, without burying it, without being overpowering or being too custardy. There's a brown sugar note in it that I pick up. It's really nice. The vanilla in it is very forward vanilla, and it kind of, I like the first hit of it. It's kind of spice. It's kind of that peppery spice to it, and it really lets you know that the vanilla is there. but it's got really nice edges to it, for lack of a better way of saying it. It's very rounded, as you'll hear flavors described, in the fact that it's there and it coats your mouth nicely. It really does. It doesn't have that, it has a butter flavor to it, like the TFA does. I don't think I said that, but TFA does have a butter flavor to it. But this is a darker butter, like a browned butter. So, like, if this is store brand knockoff Cool Whip, then this is Ready Whip. This is real whipped cream. And this, on the other hand, would be like fresh cream that's been hand whipped right there at the point of fixing the dessert. It's not out of a can. It's not mass produced. This has that more 4-star restaurant feel versus, you know, versus good store bought versus cheap store bought. And again, they all have their place and they all have their uses. This one, to me, the Jungle Flavors is just better. But I wouldn't know that if I hadn't done the single flavor test that I did, and I hadn't taken notes, and I hadn't watched videos with people talking about it. If I hadn't looked up the notes that are on ELR, if I hadn't seen the notes that other people had made, the notes that I personally made, I know if I see a recipe with Capellas in it, and it's a light, soft flavor, strawberries and peaches and things like that, if I want it to be a milky, if I see it and it's supposed to be a milky recipe, then Capella's is perfect for that. If it's supposed to be a strawberry shortcake, then the TFA is probably the better choice for that. If it's going into, if you have light fruits like peaches, like strawberries, like pears, that are going into a custard base, then the Jungle Flavors is probably what you want. And all of this stuff comes from my notes. Now again, this is all personal opinion. This is the way that they taste to me. Your taste may be completely different. But that's why we all take notes. And that's why we all take our own individual notes. That's why we do flavor tests. Especially in the beginning. As a very beginning mixer, it's very important that you make notes. Once you've been doing it for a while, certain flavors that you use often, you won't need to refer to your notes on those. You'll just go, yeah, that recipe's better with TFA. That recipe leans more towards Capella. That one leans more towards Jungle Flavors. And it'll be like that with other things too. Like, there's 25, 30 strawberries out there, and each one's individual and unique. Some layer with others better. Some are better for single flavors. Or not necessarily single flavors. I mean, you can do that with strawberry. But for if it's the only strawberry in a recipe, I'm not going to use strawberry ripe because it's too soft. It's too weak of a flavor. So I know that from my notes. But I have used that flavor enough that I have that in my head whenever I sit down to mix. But in the beginning, you're looking at 5 concentrates, 15 concentrates, 25 concentrates. That's all fine for those. But when you get up to 200 concentrates, when you get up to 500 concentrates, you don't have to get that many. It's all about whatever you want to put into this, whether it's necessity or hobby. Whether it's something that you enjoy or whether it's something that you do just to get by because you can't buy flavors in your area anymore. So you get into it what you put into it, or you get out of it what you put into it, I should say. So, you know, if you're only ever going to work with 5 flavors, you probably don't need to take that many notes. But it's still good to take them anyway, because just because you plan to start with 5 flavors doesn't mean that in 6 months' time you won't go, I want to make that recipe. I want to make the one that so-and-so talked about. And I'm going to need 5 concentrates for that. Ooh, that looks good. I'm going to need 5 concentrates for that one, but they're not the same as what I already have or what I just bought for that one. So your main flavors that you use the most, you will probably learn those things and won't have to look back on, but you never know. It might be useful. Alright, so that's been our talk about taking notes. Sort of. Kind of a roundabout way on it, but yeah, those are the kind of notes that I take, that sort of thing. But I also take notes on what percentages work for me. I know that TFA should never go above 5%. I know that jungle flavors should never go above 5%. I know that Capellas can be used 6, 7, 8%. Before it becomes too peppery for my taste, but there's always going to be a pepper there. So I know when to use it, I know how much to use it. I know those off the top of my head without referring to my notes. And you'll probably do that with the core flavors that you use. But, you know, there's also everything that goes on in your daily life that you have to remember. So it's best to go ahead and take as many notes as you feel you need and then take a few more. Never hurts, right? You can never be over-prepared. Alright, so that's been my talk on it, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. As always, there are advocacy links in the description. There's also my link to my Facebook. I'm sorry, I don't have a Facebook yet. I have links to my Twitter, I have links to my Letterboxd, and I have my PayPal link. Y'all don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment, all of that. There's also a link in the description for the 2020 Vape Survey. If you haven't taken that yet, please do. It only takes a few minutes. Alright, thank you so much for watching today. I really do appreciate it, and y'all have a good day.